And we are live once again. It is the Fantasy Football Forum. We're doing a live reaction show during Monday Night Football with very special guest Grant joining us today to give his
I'm
fantasy
Grant.
football takes. So this will
Awesome.
be fun. So it is halftime currently with the Monday night game, and I think I said it a week ago, Grant, or 2 weeks ago, when doing some game previews, that divisional games, anything can happen. You kind of throw everything out the window because these two teams, they face each other every year, twice a year. And last year, I think the Niners beat the Rams both times in the regular season.
Yep.
But when it came to playoffs, then it was the Rams' turn to actually move on to the Super Bowl. So we're seeing that kind of again, I feel like, with the first half of the score. I honestly haven't looked at any of the stats. I don't know anything other than the score is 14-6. It's the Niners. So, yeah.
It's an interesting game. I think that, similar to the divisional stuff we saw Sunday even, right? I mean, you go into that game and you say, on paper, right, Broncos and Raiders, even last week, you look at that and you say, hey, you would think Broncos have it in the bag. They haven't played well on offense, but you think Derek Carr's making some mistakes and whatnot, and then a classic Melvin Gordon fumble, which is almost as sure as rain nowadays, and a little lucky handoff there to the defense, and boom, Oakland scores, and 32-23 is the final. So that's. And I guess if you want to, Jeff, we can start with AFC West while we're in halftime. If you want,
sure,
to talk about it.
Let's go. We can talk about AFC West because one of the things that I was hearing preseason was how, and I bought into it a little bit, of what a gauntlet the AFC West is going to be. And I think we can say it has been anything but that so far. I mean, the surprise is, a surprise and not really surprise. Denver comes out week 1 and loses to Seattle. I mean, that was basically Seattle's Super Bowl for the year. That was the one game they wanted. Was that one. And Oakland, or I guess Oakland, I will always do that. It's Vegas now. I know it's Vegas, but I'll still call them Oakland. But the Raiders, like you just mentioned, a divisional game. It's anything can happen at 0-3, and now 1-3, and Denver falls to 2-2. And what happens if the next 4 weeks Denver falls 2-2 again? They're 4-4 at the halfway mark here. What's going to happen here? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the AFC West is really interesting. I'm in the same camp that you were, where I thought, honestly, all the teams are really good. We knew the Chiefs were going to be good. We knew the Chargers were going to be good. They reloaded. Their GM went all in on, they're going to pay Herbert next year, right? So they're loading in on Herbert's. They're paying him like $3 million this year or something crazy, right?
Yeah.
So their GM went all in on talent, got Khalil Mack, re-signed Derwin James, did a bunch of different stuff and restructured their defense. And so we knew the Chargers and the Chiefs were going to be good, right? And I thought in preseason, Oakland, they were decent, right? I think they finished. I mean, they were almost. They got into the playoffs, the wild card spot. I believe they finished, 9-7, something like that. I thought with adding Devontae Adams and a little more, play time with Carr and Waller and Josh Jacobs, kind of have another year to mature. I was thinking Oakland was just, going to take off. I thought they were going to be doing well. Same with the Broncos. That's my thought too. Was with the whole Drew Lock situation, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jeff. But it's their defense was good. They had the playmakers at wide receiver with Judy and Sutton, and they had Gordon. They were kind of rotating some other backs in there. And man, I don't know what it is, but like honestly, other than the Chiefs, who lost a weird game to the Colts, kicking issues, it was a weird game. Colts played them well. That's a whole other story. But like the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Broncos have just looked flat. Like they haven't looked good. Russell Wilson looks like a budget quarterback compared to the $250 million superstar they want. Right. And it's just I don't know. It seems weird that, people were saying preseason like that was in the toughest division of football, potentially having division winner and then 2 wild card teams be in that division,
Yep.
right? And you were going to have 3
Yep.
teams from that division go, and it was going to be a bloodbath with people saying the Chargers were the number one favorites. Mahomes had lost Hill, defense had been kind of retooled. So I think that overall I'm a little disappointed with the AFC West. Honestly, I thought it was more competitive. Derek Carr looks bad. I'll be honest. Like he just doesn't look. He's staying too long in the pocket. So when he does his reads, you'll see him move around. He doesn't. He's staying too long in the pocket, and he's just staring down his receivers, and he's making bad throws. Like I think he looks worse than last year. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are. If you kind of agree or have a different take on that.
No, yeah, so there's a lot of good points there. I think one thing that got overlooked by a lot of people, I heard a couple people talk about this in the offseason, but when you look at the AFC West from the top down, and as it is, top down is Kansas City, then the Chargers, then Denver, then Oakland. And it's not just that because of record. And you can kind of flip-flop, I think, Denver and Oakland just because Oakland made the playoffs last year. They needed a miracle in Jacksonville, which apparently that's kind of the bane of Indianapolis's existence. Apparently, is they can't win in Jacksonville, so they needed a win in Jacksonville for the Jaguars to knock the Colts out of playoff contention, and they still needed other things to happen for them to actually get in. So that was a little fluky, I thought. So the fact that, the argument was, hey, they made the playoffs last year. They're really good. I'm not going to deny that, they're good to make the playoffs, but at 9-7, kind of just, you're okay. There are other teams I think could have made it a little bit easier than them. But when we start at the top down of the AFC West, I think the thing that remained consistent that bled into this year and that has remained a fact is organizationally, there is no turnover in Kansas City. Brett Veach is still the GM. Andy Reid's still the head coach. And most importantly, I'm going to say most importantly, but at the same time not, Patrick Mahomes is still a quarterback. You have consistency in the key areas for the organization. And, they lost a game to Indy on – they could have put it away several times. Had such horrible special teams play in that game. That was just awful special teams.
Yeah.
You fumble a punt, you miss field goals, you miss extra points, and you just let them, even get Chris Jones with his, penalty, whatever it was that extended the drive that the Colts won on. So, you shot yourselves in the foot on one game. But they've been good, and they've remained good. The Chargers have had consistency too, and I think that's what's what you said has kind of helped them, where they have the same head coach, they have the same GM, they have the same quarterback. There's some pieces that the Chargers built this team to stop Kansas City. It is my opinion, after watching the Week 2 Thursday night game against the Chargers in Kansas City, again a divisional game, anything's going to happen. Where we saw LA, again, we saw the Chargers win against Oakland, or win against the Raiders against Vegas, and it was kind of a fluky win, some would say, but at the same time against another divisional game. But then the Chargers played their best game against Kansas City because that's the team that they are trying to be built to beat, because they know to get beyond what they want to in the playoffs, they have to go through Kansas City. And adding guys like Mac, adding J.C. Jackson, adding all those guys to say, we're going to beat you. We are building our team to stop you while Herbert's still on his rookie contract. And this year, unfortunately, they're starting to get injuries, and it's starting to add up where that's that little bit of luck of, it's not – I'm not going to say it's lucky, but those are the little things that over the course of the season, I think they add enough on. I think they're going to be fine. I still think the Chargers make the playoffs. They're still, in my opinion, one of the best teams. And Herbert looks really good even after having the broken rib cartilage in second week after that. He looked really good yesterday. against the Texans. And so where I wasn't quite buying the entirety of the AFC West was Denver. One has brand new ownership. They had somebody bought the team this offseason. So they have new ownership, new head coach, new GM, and a new quarterback. And they're putting it all together. And this is not a head coach where he's had head coaching jobs. He's had coaching jobs, but he's not had the head coach job. And some of the stuff in the offseason just wasn't quite adding up to me of like, this, if it works, then you're putting – honestly, I think what Denver's trying to do is put Russell Wilson in more what he wanted when he was with Seattle. He wanted more control. He wanted more player-ran team, more player-led things than just coach-led. And I'm all for, players being able to do what they want. I can't sit here and say, I fault them for that. You look at what the NBA has done, and they're very much a player-led league. And some could argue that's been a bad thing. It's never a bad thing when the players are able to have more of a voice with what they want to do. But when you have a brand new head coach that doesn't quite have a structure in place with a quarterback trying to drive something like that, I think that's what you're seeing here is that colliding, and it's really not translating on the field to the consistent production and play like we want to see or what we expected to see, because they have talent. They have good defense.
Yeah.
They have playmakers.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like, so do you feel like so kind of we'll focus on Russell Wilson for a second. So with the Broncos, do you think so Russell Wilson, he's had playmakers in Seattle, right? He's had Lockett, he's had DK Metcalf, Marshawn Lynch, Rashad Penny, he's had Chris
Doug
Carson,
Baldwin
like he's had stud.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's had stud running backs. He has great playmakers. So do you think this is like a blip year where, okay, I signed this huge contract, it's a long-term deal. First year, I'm kind of figuring out the ropes, getting used to like a new team. Or do you think this is kind of more of like a habit or like a pattern of things to come where, it's a classic quarterback not being on the same page with his team or his team letting him down, a la Stafford in Detroit or something, right? Where like you have this quarterback who's kind of limited by the things around him. But with Wilson, like he's had success in the past, right? They've been to 2 Super Bowls, right? And like they probably should have won them both, right? So he's had success, right? Unlike Stafford, who's just been, dogged on the Lions. So what are your thoughts on Wilson? You think is this going to be a pattern, you think, of him not doing well for a few years? Or you think this is kind of like a blip and we might see a mid-season resurgence from the Broncos?
I think we could see some mid-season resurgence, but I think it's going to be a hard year for them. I think it's going to be a learning year. And a learning year for both Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, the coach for them, because I think it's going to have to be a balance of I think they're trying to find their identity. And I think Hackett's leaning on Russ to say, what's our identity on offense? You're going to lead that. Similar to what, Tom Brady, we all know for years, Tom Brady's been the offensive coordinator, at least the offensive coordinator really relies heavily on Brady for what he does because he's been in the league so long. He knows it. The difference is there's a different level, I think, of respect that's commanded between like Brady and Russell Wilson, between the guys that they play with. And if Russell Wilson's wanting to be a player-led franchise organization, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but are you all on the same page? And if you're not, this is, I think, what you might see more of, because guys want to get what they want to get as far as if I get my deal, me and my contract. And that doesn't really translate all the time in football. I think that's a little bit harder of a thing to go out and translate. So I think this year's going to be kind of learning. And I think if they miss the playoffs, which I that was one of my bold things in the preseason, was the Broncos would miss the playoffs. I think they're going to have a pretty short leash next year of all right, it's a new owner. He just bought the organization. We put a new head coach in. We went and got the one piece we were told this is what we need with Russell Wilson. Now go win a playoff. Like go to the playoffs. Go win me games. So I think it's going to be a pretty short leash, and I'm not going to say it's all going to be the head coach's fault, but it starts there. It starts with them. It starts with the GM. They put players around them. So I think it's going to be. I think they're going to have more of a target than even Josh McDaniels will with the Raiders, because the Raiders, they have guys that have had success. I think Josh McDaniels is looking for how to have success and win, because he hasn't won a game. I think I heard the stat before yesterday. He hadn't won a game as a head coach since 2010 or whatever the last year was he was with the Broncos.
Wow.
With Tim Tebow. It's like, and
that's crazy.
The only reason I highlight that is because McDaniels is out there talking about, well, we need to learn how to win. Well, the Raiders won last year. Yeah, it was only 9 games, but they went to the playoffs. They won. Derek Carr has had an MVP. Yeah. Derek Carr has gone to the playoffs multiple times in his career. Devontae Adams, all he did was win in Green Bay. And so they have players that know how to win. So now, okay, you got to go win, Josh. Go win now. And you got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're seeing with the AFC West is the two teams that have had stability versus the two teams that have had transition and changes, that we're seeing that play out this early part of the year where, I mean, it didn't surprise me that Andy Reid and the Chiefs went out week 1 and blew the doors off Arizona. It was 44 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close. Like, that didn't surprise me. They're always prepared. It also didn't surprise me when the Chargers played them close in week 2 and almost won that game, because that's how the Chargers are building themselves. They're building themselves to beat Kansas City in those games.
Yeah.
So looks like we got 4th and 1.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that I mean, starting with the Chiefs, right? I mean, I think there was some doubts, of course, after, the Colts game of, okay, what's going on? But, Matt Wright comes in, does a fantastic job kicking. All you can ask for while Butker is on the mend, and it very well could be. I know Butker is a big name. People like him in Kansas City, but it could be a starting position. I mean, it could be one of those things where Butker gets injured, and I mean, kickers are weird. Like Amendola, I mean, he had one game that he was bad, and dude's off the team, right? So, I think with the Chiefs, what I like about the Chiefs on Sunday night, I watched about 3/4 of the game. I didn't watch the first quarter as much, but the last 3 quarters, what I really appreciated was they felt loose. Like Pat, if you watched him run around, he felt loose. He felt comfortable with his receivers. And also, too, the announcers, of course, were mentioned several times, but he threw the ball to so many people. And last year we had that problem of it felt like it was Tyreek and Kelsey, and sometimes when they would get tired or something would happen, it would feel like the offense was going through one person. Like, okay, it's only Kelsey. And we saw that in the first drive. I saw some highlights. The first, drive or two, it was like Kelsey got 6 passes, and that's great. And then I felt like he distributed the ball better. But I mean, they took it to the NFC's number 1 defense, and they kicked their ass. Honestly, I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and the score was, I mean, the game was not as close as score indicated. Like it was pretty bad, and Brady. I mean, I thought the defense played well. I thought Evans did a good job with Brady. Like they kept on a few passes and whatnot, but Chiefs pressured Brady decently well. Leonard Fournette had a lot of passing yards, but he didn't really get going on the run game. And so that's something that I like to see is our run game has typically been a little suspect, or run defense, sorry, because we've had some issues with just closing those gaps, especially at the line of scrimmage. The yards after contact were always poor with the Chiefs, and that's what's kind of sets us up for trouble. Is okay, now instead of like a 2nd and 8, it's a 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5,
right?
And then you get these offenses that can really churn the ball, like the Titans and the Bills, who have really, I mean, we've always had tight games with them, but especially the Titans too. You don't want to give Derrick Henry 2 chances from and 2nd and 5 to make 5 yards. He's going to make it happen, right? So I liked what I saw from the Chiefs. I'm hoping that we can kind of see more of the distribution, which we hadn't seen as much the first few games. Like it was great, which I like that because they can't plan for someone. Obviously, Kelsey's a threat, but he's also playing tight end, so people know he's blocking for a chunk and then he's going for passes. But the amount of different receivers was, I don't know, it was really impressive to me. And of course, he made that circus spin Madden 360 no scope, in the end zone there with Allaire. That was amazing. I think right now, like go ahead.
Oh no! I was saying he always pulls something out whether it's always close around the line of scrimmage, and it's like I'm not quite past the line of scrimmage, so I'm going to throw this here, and somebody's open at that point in time. And I think they highlighted last during the game last night that through the first 3 games, Mahomes has thrown a touchdown to 8 different pass catchers, whether that's running back, tight end, wide receiver, and that's the most in the NFL. So I think that is where they are better. Where last year, I think it was, you kind of got into this path of rhythm of like, okay, this game's going to be a Kelsey game. Okay, this game's going to be a Hill game. Okay, this one's Kelsey, this one's Hill. Like, it's one or the other. I think they did it right where you never want to be, and I'm not saying Tyreek's has hit his ceiling and he's on his downturn, because he's obviously showing, even in Miami, where he still has that big playability. He is still a threat. He's still there. The AFC is still going through Buffalo. I don't think that's going to change. I know Miami just beat Buffalo last week, but the AFC is still going through Buffalo. I have some other thoughts on that too. But to go back, I think what Kansas City was doing was smart, where they let a player go get his max amount that a team was willing to pay. They also didn't want to be the team to overpay an aging wide receiver. And I get we're talking about a guy that's in his early 30s, so he's younger than I am. But in NFL terms, an aging wide receiver where his biggest asset is his speed. And that's going to be the thing that slows down the most as he gets older, is that factor, is his speed. Again, it's not there yet. But they got the most back for it, where had they waited a year or two, they're in a worse position then. So I think they were trying to solve for last year, where the league just said, throw it short. We're just not going to let you throw the deep ball on us. And they went and got Juju Smith-Schuster, who has been one of the best zone wide receivers when he's healthy. He was the guy for Big Ben. He has 1,000-yard receiving on his resume for a year. Him and Antonio Brown both went over 1,000 yards in a year. So he has that ability. They went and got a speedster, not to replace Hill, but to have that Z or X receiver that just takes the top off of defense with MVS, where, MVS got behind the defense once and Mahomes hit him deep for like a 30-yard gain, where their game isn't only deep balls. It's, okay, we're going to scheme people open. So I actually agree. I felt like last night's game was way more just in control, loose of this is what we're doing, and everybody's a part of it. So try to stop it. Everybody's a part of it. I think top down, their wide receiver room got better because of who they added. They let go Byron Pringle. They let go DeMarcus Robinson. They let people go where those were guys that were actually consistently, putting numbers up because Mahomes was able to utilize them. Kansas City now, they're worse.
Watkins. I forgot that.
They let Watkins go where
that's right.
Robinson went from the Raiders to now with the Ravens. I think he's with the Ravens now, and he's still the third option on that team at best. Where, he was the second or third on the Chiefs, where our 1-2 at receivers, Juju and MVS for receivers. So I think top to bottom, the receivers got better. And I think that was missed because of what people focus on with losing Hill. Um,
Yeah,
so
I agree. And I think too, there's a lot behind the scenes stuff that some I think more casual fans don't understand, which is okay, salaries, cap space, like
yeah,
obviously, yeah, like if you're the Chiefs or you're the Rams or whatever, like yeah, I'd love to have Aaron Donald and Stafford and Cup and Higbee and all these guys on my team, and and Von Miller and all these guys, right? I'd love to have them all on my team forever, but they're going to have to get paid money.
yep,
And I think people don't really realize that, especially with the Chiefs, is they had this really good period of Pat Mahomes had just signed, like he was getting close to sign that big extension. He did the 500 million 10-year contract. That's weighted more heavily towards the later years, which helps the Chiefs out. But then
right.
Tyreek was getting paid like a normal amount. Kelsey, same. All these guys. So like you had to move someone, and Tyreek was, I don't remember his salary in Miami. I think it was like 16 or 17 million. I think something like that.
Something like that. I
I
think
don't
it
remember
was.
exactly.
Yeah, I
But
don't remember his numbers,
yeah,
but
but
it
like they had to
was.
move some money, and Hill, I mean, with the receiver, you could have a bad injury, and he's had hamstring problems and stuff because of how fast he is and things. So I think that he there was the risk. I bet he wanted guaranteed money from the Chiefs. The Chiefs were like,
Yep.
"Hey, we can't give you, some 80 million guaranteed 120 overall, whatever this is. We can't give you this contract." And he's like, "Well, I'm just going to bounce." And, for him, the Dolphins also probably, to be honest, the Dolphins really wanted someone.
Yeah.
um, they were all in on Tua. They needed weapons. They had Waddle, but that was kind of it, honestly, with the Dolphins. And because I know, like, yeah. Anyways, it's just kind of interesting how it all worked out. But yeah, I think the Chiefs look really balanced. I want to see what I'm really interested in seeing is Brady is very pass, like the Tampa Bay offense, very pass heavy. Check down reminds
Yep.
me very much of the Steelers with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown there with Big Ben, of like very pass heavy with this like check down running back kind of look with Fournette and company. So I'm really interested to see how they do with the Ravens eventually or whatever, and the Titans and teams like that where they mean the playoffs, and like that's the teams that I think are going to give the Chiefs the biggest problems. It's just sucking time away from Pat Mahomes having the ball, and then we have a couple of drives that die after 3 downs or 6 downs or something, and then we get the
Yep.
ball back, and it's just that's what's killed us when we've lost in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think the run defense was a focal point because I think you hit on it where that up, 3 or 4 games, that has been a strong aspect of our defense so far this year is we have
Mm-hmm.
stopped the run. Now, I think James Conner had a pretty decent week in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kind of take that with a grain of salt. So I've been starting to track individual like positions against teams and defense where I've seen the Chiefs actually have the worst positional rating defensively is against the opponent's wide receiver 1. So last night we saw Mike Evans. He had 2
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns. He had a pretty decent game. That was where I was kind of expecting to see us, okay, we'll struggle against him, which that's not a good thing. Um, we didn't struggle against Michael Pittman when we played Indianapolis, but again, there's a little bit of a different weird game. That, and I'm trying to figure out what
Mm-hmm.
Indy does. I think they are kind of running through like 3 different tight ends right now, so that's a little bit weird to watch.
Yeah, and also too, you've
Um,
got Matt Ryan, who's not done as well
yeah,
as even freaking Philip Rivers from last year. So there's a little bit of a gap there with ability, I think, with quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, and I think what we all expected or what we thought was Matt Ryan's going to kind of have this resurgence of youth, of, oh, it's a new team, it's a new situation, and that's fair, but I think we are seeing more the reality of, no, he's still a little bit aged, and there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that, but you go from one quarterback to then retires to, I mean, I think it was last year that Carson Wentz, and it's like, well, that guy's trash, let's get rid of him, and
Mm-hmm.
you bring in another guy, that's I think that's the way of they're trying to do a poor man's build like what the Rams did, where the Rams brought in Stafford, and Stafford's not, hurting as far as his age. I mean, yeah, he's getting up there, so he has only a few good years left, but he was still had enough left to go produce what they needed to versus what Jared Goff brought them as far as playmaking abilities. So the Colts, I think, are in trouble more from a GM and head coach, and will have to find a different system because they need a younger quarterback. They have potential, but they need a younger quarterback to actually get them where they want to go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
But
Okay, so do we want us to talk about AFC West, or do you want to move on to another topic?
I would say I think we actually kind of are almost transitioning a new topic. If we're talking about
Okay.
quarterbacks you would want to build a franchise around, and we could take any of the quarterbacks in the league right now, but I think the big ones would be Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert. You could take guys even like Trevor Lawrence, and I know he had a kind of an off game last week, but he's shown some. Who would be the guy if you said I'm going to build my franchise around this guy? Who is that guy that you're saying I'm going in on him?
So for me, I think you hit the nail on the head with probably 3 of the top 4 guys. I think for me it is splitting hairs between Herbert, Allen, and Mahomes. In my opinion, it's splitting the hairs. Just based upon how they're playing right now, I mean, and this is really just splitting hairs. I probably would pick Josh Allen just because I think right now, like, and this is nothing against Pat Mahomes or Herbert. They're both fantastic, but I think Allen's just on another level, and he has, and if you look at Herbert, he's got studs. Same with Mahomes, he's got studs to throw to. And I think a lot of what Allen brings to the table, like he's got Gabe, he's got not Michael Davis, who am I thinking of? Gabriel Davis. He's got Gabriel Davis, who's kind of injured and things. He's got like Dawson Knox and a few others, and Stephon Diggs. But man, when I've watched the Bills play, it's been insane. Like, it's just another level of quarterback. So I would probably pick Allen if it was me.
Sure. All right, Jake. I know you're just joining us here. And
hey, Jake.
What's up, boy?
Going on? So I'm gonna ask you the same question Grant just answered. Then I'll give my answer too. Out of all the quarterbacks in the league, if you are starting a football franchise right now, and you can pick any of the quarterbacks out there that's a starting quarterback to be the starting quarterback for your new team, who are you going with and why? So Grant went with Josh Allen, kind of laid it out there why he was going with Allen. But like, you could choose Allen, right, Mahomes, Herbert, any of the guys that are second year or even rookies. But who are you picking to lead your new franchise?
Yeah, there's a few guys that are really close, but personally, I'd probably have to go with, if I was starting right now, it kind of depends on if I have, it kind of depends on what kind of supporting cast I have, along with coaching as well.
Sure. I mean, all that's in there, but out of the guys, who would you say is, I'm going to pick this guy to be able to surround him with the right coach, with the right talent?
This is like you're the owner of the Wichita Wranglers or something, and you're like, I have unlimited money, and I'm pulling some. I'm giving people offers, right? Like, who's Wichita your guy you want to go to?
Wichita would definitely name it that too. Sucks.
Wichita Wranglers.
They had a AAA baseball team that was the Wranglers back in the 90s. So.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Fantastic.
I'm probably taking Josh Allen, honestly. Okay. I don't think Pat Mahomes can. I think Pat Mahomes makes magic happen a little bit. He just makes some things happen you can't even describe over Josh Allen. However, I don't think Mahomes can make throws that Josh Allen can't make. I think Josh Allen can make every throw Mahomes can make. I think Josh Allen is a little bit better of an athlete, and I mean just a little bit. I don't think it's not like night and day here at all. We're talking about split. We're talking about 51% to 49%. And if you're just going to hand me over, if you say Josh Allen is no longer available, you get Pat Mahomes. I'm not mad in the slightest.
Yeah, no.
So, I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think you're splitting hairs between them. And Grant, I think Kittle was out of bounds on that catch.
I think he was. Yeah, I think he was. The
That
ref was not paying attention there.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
I'm not sure why.
Has Kittle been like? Has Kittle been like pretty much nothing the last 2 years or what?
No, he's been hurt.
Yeah, he had that year. What it was
right.
what the COVID year? The COVID year he cracked off, or was the year before that? And he was insane.
Year.
And then
he hasn't quite gotten.
And then
back,
I think it's just name. It's kind of like Zeke Elliott right now. With fantasy, it's the name, and he keeps dropping further and further down.
Yeah.
So I'll give my answer.
Go ahead.
On that question. And as I thought about that question, there's a lot of variables that I put in where, you could go with a guy like Jalen Hurts, or you could go with a guy like Lamar Jackson, and they've been
Cooper Rush,
Yeah, I mean, Dallas has a quarterback controversy coming up because Cooper Rush is 3-0 right now, and so
he's undefeated. I don't know what else. I don't know what other stats we can talk about. He's undefeated.
He's 3-0. He's
nobody has beaten him.
Yeah.
But
so that'll transition. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it. That'll transition really well. But I look at guys like Jackson and the guys that, for fantasy purposes, we love because they run the ball and they have so many good plays.
Yeah.
And Jackson, to his credit, ever since he got in the league, he's been continually has gotten better, more accurate as passing. Jalen Hurts has shown the same thing. They are getting better as quarterbacks. I think they're still more limited to what they offer as a passer than a rusher, where a guy like Herbert, a guy like Mahomes, a guy like Allen, who have that just accuracy, the deep ball, everything else, that it's flipped more where they're twice as good of a thrower as they are a runner, and you have to scheme more defenses around them. I think it's splitting hairs between, honestly, those three guys who are probably my top three guys of Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, and you can put them in any order you want to, and I can't really fault you for it. I think Herbert's a little limited with his coaching right now, but he's shown he can do anything that the other two guys can do. I would still take Josh Allen as my quarterback, but it's close. It's close, and when Allen came in the league,
Josh Allen he just looked insane. He just looked like at least the start of this year, and honestly, all the playoffs, and the Chiefs just got lucky because 13 seconds, of course. But if that game was going any further, the Bills are going to win, right? We all knew it.
Yeah.
If Josh Allen got the ball again, they were going to win.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's gonna, they actually have they have a matchup here in a few weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they don't overlook the Raiders to the Bills, but we'll see. So
right,
that'll be a good one.
Well, on your point about Herbert, he did come into my mind, when thinking about these guys. The problem I have with Herbert, and I'm really not going to mention him as the guy I'm going to build around yet until I see him win a huge game, at least one or two big games.
That's fair.
He needs to do something in the playoffs, or at least snag a couple just big time, Sunday night football games or Monday night football games or something like that. And I don't mean against Detroit or someone. It needs to be a notable football team in a big spotlight, and Herbert comes out and balls. Then I'm like, okay, there's the complete package I'm looking for, because I know he's talented, majorly talented, but is he going to choke all the time? Because if that's the case, I don't know.
So is that Herbert, or is that? And I'm not going to say you're wrong. But is that Herbert, or is that the Chargers as a whole?
Josh Allen?
Well, I mean,
well,
because the Chargers as a whole have a history of underperforming.
No, that is true.
Yeah.
Because it was early
you talk
2000s.
about the Phillip Rivers years. It's terrible.
Phillip Rivers years were wasted. They had Rivers, they had Tomlinson, they had Antonio Gates. They had the number 1 seed in the early 2000s and lost to Brady and the Patriots at home. And they have a history of underperforming. So I'm not going to disagree with you. I would love to see Herbert go out with a big game. The question I still have for the Chargers as a whole is, are they going to break this habit of underperforming? And that starts at the ownership level. So that's a big change.
And the thing is, and on your point, like I've gone to so many Chargers games now, which has been great because I live in LA now, so it's great to go to more Chargers games, and they're super fun to watch. Like I would say,
that would be a blast.
It's just they're a lot of fun to watch, but the thing is, Herbert needs time to throw the ball, and I think their offensive line, it's better than it was last year, but he's still running around quite a bit, and I think that's going to be the big thing is he needs time. He has playmakers. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen when he's healthy, there are playmakers for Herbert, but he's got Austin Eckler, who's like this Le'Veon Bell type of, passing down back that can kind of a jack of all trades.
He's Christian along with West Coast.
The dude's awesome, but it's just that's the big thing with the Chargers is getting Herbert protection and the defense. Like they have Derwin James, they have these studs on defense, but I've seen them give a lot of big plays, and you can't drop like the Jags. I understand the Jags are better this year, but at the same time, like Trevor Lawrence looked like a god out there. I was at that game, and they beat him like 30-10. It was terrible. I was drunk by the third quarter because I was like, "This is horrible. I'm gonna drown my sorrows in alcohol." But like he looked good. Like Trevor Lawrence had protection. He threw the ball well. He moved people around. James Robinson ran the ball well. Like the Jags just killed them, and there's no reason for why that happened. And then even with the Texans game, they're down 24-3. Right? Like that can't happen. Like I understand that like there's ebbs and flows and momentums in games and stuff, but like you can't you can't go down 24-3 in the NFL and expect to come back and win. The Chiefs have that ability. I don't think the Chargers can reliably bank on that, and they came back versus the Texans, right? But at the same time, like it's the NFL. Like if you win, most games are one score because everyone's a professional, everyone's good. There's the line between very good and great is small in the NFL. I mean, think of the playoffs of how many times that something's happened where a team's advanced and the other one hasn't, right? Like look at the Bills last year. Arguably they were better than the Chiefs last year, and then and the Bengals. Like you could argue that the Mahomes and company were better than the Bengals, but they didn't play well, and Burrow and those guys capitalized, right? So anyways, that's my whole spiel with the Chargers is like I'm concerned that they're just Herbert's going to get whacked around a lot, and then with his rib thing, he's going to get hurt, and I don't know. We'll kind of see how it goes, but I'm hoping they can do well.
Is it fair to say that the Chargers don't have a lot of notable weapons? Like when Keenan Allen is out, which is all the time, they have Mike Williams, and who else?
Yeah.
So I would say they have weapons, and if you look at it, they have the ability to have playmakers. Because I think Josh Palmer left yesterday's game against the Texans. I think he left. He got injured. So it's guys that are very good at being a replacement level, like, and have that potential to be that next level guy. When you look at fantasy rosters, you're looking at people who you want to have as that potential. They have the guys that you look at like, man, athletically, you should have this potential. It doesn't always translate though, and that's also, I mean, I can look at guys and hear people talk about how athletic somebody is and why they should be good or better than other people, and kind of question that doesn't always translate to being a good NFL athlete if you're just a good athlete. A lot of times it does, but typically you have to be able to put something together in order to get both. I think that's something we forget just looking at those guys. So I would say they still have playmakers. It's kind of like Kansas City, Jake, with, after Juju and MVS, and they have playmakers, but you're talking about Justin Watson and is Hardman,
that's fair enough.
Is Hardman a good NFL player? Is he a stud?
No. Hardman's a liability.
But that's where athleticism comes into play. He is an incredible athlete, but he is not a stud NFL athlete. Where
right.
He's got the ability, it's just not translating on the field.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. So next topic I have, we could talk about two things. One is biggest surprise and biggest disappointment so far through week 4 in NFL. We also talk about fantasy in our league if we want.
Okay. Let's do these two topics and then we'll cut it for now.
Okay.
That way it's not too terribly late.
Okay.
But let's do these two topics.
Okay.
So let's do biggest surprise and then biggest disappointment or biggest miss in your mind. So let's do biggest surprise first. So Jake, what's your biggest surprise after week 4?
I'd like some time to think on that, but let me.
All right, you think?
I mean, one.
Okay.
Well, if you guys already have something, go ahead.
My biggest surprise is that the Jacksonville Jaguars actually look like a competent NFL franchise.
That's what I was gonna land on a second ago, but I decided to wait. That very much surprised me.
Yeah.
So
it literally is a coach. It literally is a coach.
It literally is. You're right. And here's why it's surprising me. I actually didn't think that the Titans were going to make the playoffs this year because they lost A.J. Brown. They haven't done anything else, and all their playmakers are getting older. Ryan Tannehill is Kirk Cousins of the South. He's there, but I don't think he's even quite as good. I thought the Colts were going to be a lot better. I thought the Jags were a year away. And I'm not ready to crown Trevor Lawrence as the next Peyton Manning. I think he still has some things to work on. But you add Doug Peterson and what he's done with that. I mean, everybody was kind of questioning who they brought in this offseason as far as wide receivers, where the top guy they brought in was Christian Kirk. They also brought in Zay Jones, but that was it. It wasn't like they brought a Devontae Adams or somebody like that in. They brought in guys. I was like, wait, are we sure this is going to work? And I get it. They're 2-2, but 2-2, they're leading that division still. So the Jags being actually a competent NFL franchise after having a couple years of number 1 picks, that's a really good surprise for me. I enjoy seeing that. So
right.
Grant,
I'd have to
take
a couple more.
Oh, go for it, Jake.
I mean, okay, yeah, go for it, Jake.
Oh no, just a couple teams that have big time surprised me that I thought were gonna tank. For one, Geno Smith for the Seattle Seahawks. Like how much gas is left in that? That's he's balling out pretty well.
So
the Houston Texans also I thought were tanking, and I don't know what their record is right now. I don't think it's very good, but they're competitive. They're very competitive.
There goes
1-3.
There he goes.
I think I just won $250, dude.
Did you?
If he went over 100 yards, I just did. Yeah.
I don't know. He got 20 right here at least.
Yeah,
10,
he did. Yeah, a lot on that.
20, 25, 30. He's got 30 yards right there. Nice.
Let's go, baby.
I think for me, like, my biggest surprise has been the Eagles, to be honest with you.
Nice.
From last year, Jalen Hurts gets put in, right? He's not playing great. I thought, to be honest with you, he had glimpses of brilliance, but same as RG3. I thought he was going to be kind of an RG3. I didn't see him as someone who could be a good quarterback. overall, I didn't really think that he was much. Honestly, I'll be honest. Like I didn't think he was going to do that great. I thought that he was kind of overrated, and I thought that the Eagles, obviously you try to get those top 10 quarterbacks, and I saw the stat the other day that, on average, right, out of every 10 picks, right, that you're trying to get a quarterback only, of those 10 picks you hit on 2 or 3 of them. So obviously as a team, you're drafting a QB. If you're routinely bad every 3 or 4 years, it'll take you 20 or 30 years to hit like a generational quarterback like a Brady or Mahomes. That's just how the odds are. And so I thought with Hurts, they had to go try him. He's this dual threat quarterback. But dude, the Eagles look good. They also have one of the best defenses in the NFC. That's been the biggest thing for me, is that Jalen Hurts is balling out. His receivers, like from a fantasy perspective, been super inconsistent. I have Devontae Smith, and he's like, I want to pull my hair out. 1 week he scores 30, next week he scores 2, but whatever. But the Eagles in general have been balling out. The defense has been great. I will say they played the Lions, the Vikings, the Commanders, and then they beat the Jags, right? But at the same time, like their schedule gets harder. They play the Cardinals, they play the Cowboys, then it goes Steelers, and then Texans. And so, like the last half of their season, they play a little harder teams, but their schedule is not bad. So I could realistically see the Eagles going like 12-4 this year, and I can see them sneaking in to like right behind the Rams or some other team as like a number like 2 or 3 seed. I can see it happening because their schedule, like you look at the rest of their schedule, right? So I'm reading off here. You have the Cardinals, the Cowboys, Steelers, Texans, Washington, Colts, Packers, Titans, and then you have New York, Chicago, Cowboys, Saints, and Giants. Like that schedule it's not super, super easy, but dude, way easier than a lot of these teams, and they can steamroll through a lot of those games.
For sure.
So the Eagles are able to take advantage this year. Last year, they got into the playoffs as a wild card. So Dallas gets the number
I think the
one
Eagles
seed
are going to
schedule.
be. I think they're borderline going to be like a 2 or 3 seed. I still think the Rams. I think the Rams are going to go through some pains, but I think they're going to get into a rhythm here towards the later half of the season. But I really think that the Eagles are going to be there, like 2 or 3 seed. They're going to be up there.
I'm going to one-up that, Grant, because I called that the Eagles are going to take the number 1 seed in the NFC.
It honestly, like at the time, you're full of crap, but I mean, they're looking good.
They're looking good, and I get like they're going to have some pains. I think they're going to roll over the Cardinals. I'd say roll over them. I think they're going to get to a big lead against the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are going to make it close coming back. But I think their defense is for real defense. Now, Slay went down, and it's not just on one guy, but Slay went down, so that'll kind of hurt a little bit. But the Cardinals are kind of a mess, and it goes back to coaching. And the Eagles have done it well where they're surrounding Hurts in the offseason with talent. They got A.J. Brown from the Titans, and I think they got him for a steal with 1 first-round pick or however many picks that they had to give up. But they also still have how many picks to go where they're building this. They didn't want 3 first-round picks this year. They're like, yeah, we'll give 1 up for an actual asset that we know is going to be good and going to help our quarterback do well. Last year, the only
they also have the Saints.
Yeah, they also have that. So, and that's going to be a high
Saints first-round pick that's protected this year,
and
which is going to probably be a high pick because the Saints are not good.
Yeah. So they're building the right way, but they're doing it in such a way where it's like, how are you able to do this? So, yeah, they're surprised, but I'm not totally surprised by that because I kind of was bold on, I would say that they were going to win the NFC because I was down more on the Packers, was down on just, I think that NFC West is going to be kind of a gauntlet of the Rams have to deal with the Niners. And as we're seeing right now, the Niners kind of have their number in the regular season. So,
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But, all right, what's your biggest disappointment this year?
Biggest disappointment. Probably for me, biggest disappointment is I would just say the AFC West, we touched on it a little bit. I think that's just the biggest disappointment. I thought the whole division was going to be rock solid. I thought it was going to be just every divisional game was going to be this crazy tight, just knockdown, drag out brawl.
Yeah.
And, other than I think the Chargers and the Chiefs that are the clear front runners, like the Raiders and the Broncos does not look good. Between the coaching with the Broncos, we talked about all this earlier in the episode, but that's my mega disappointment is the AFC West. I feel like I was ready for it to be this primo division. What the NFC West was last year, 2 years ago, right? Where top to bottom, all the teams are just stacked, and it's just not that way this year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Because like the Raiders,
it was one of the most hyped deals in the offseason.
Yeah.
The bloodbath of the AFC West, and it's just not. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens by mid-season. We'll see how it starts looking. But the Raiders are garbage, and Denver's not far behind them.
Yep.
No.
So.
I think my biggest disappointment actually, honestly, the Indianapolis Colts. I was a lot higher on them. That's I'll talk about how I was bold on the Eagles, saying they're going to do that. I was high on the Colts. I thought I did not think Matt Ryan was as washed or his age was as what it was. I thought they had a little more in them. And honestly, talking about playmakers that underperformed, Paris Campbell, huge disappointment as far as athleticism, what he's able to do. It does not translate to the field right now, and it's just not going to happen. They can't. I don't think you can just build around a running back and say we're going to run it and this is what we're going to do and play the way that they do on defense specifically. And
well, great example. Look at the Giants with Saquon. Exactly what happened with them for the last 3 years, and then Saquon is, you call him a generational talent. He could have been, he goes to the Cowboys instead of Zeke, right? And what happens or something, right? Not obviously different. They were drafted different times, but Saquon's on the Cowboys, the offensive line. What happens, right? It's crazy.
Right. No, exactly.
Right.
That was a bad pick by Stafford.
Dude, Matthew Stafford sucks, bro.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, yeah, this will transition to fantasy because I have him on my fantasy team, and I picked up Stafford because, dude.
That's a disappointment. So from my disappointment, I don't really have a disappointment. I think Grant said it with the AFC West. That's probably my biggest disappointment for sure. But if you want to talk about the biggest disappointment, it would be Baker Mayfield showing his true colors on a new team. He sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a big disappointment.
Shannon Sharp, dude. I'll admit, I started watching the Carolina Cardinals game. I turned it off after the first quarter and watched something else. It was so bad, dude. It was
Shannon Sharp tweeted out, "It's a battle between who's the worst quarterback from OU." It was so funny.
No, it's bad. It
was horrible. Yeah, it was a really bad. It was bad. The Carolina has a really good defense, I think, but
I just don't know how the Rams. Sorry, I'm watching the game. I don't know how the Rams. I don't know how the Rams got mistake-free Stafford for those 5 games and pushed through the playoffs. Because this dude has been ass. The first 4 games, he's not been good.
Right.
Somebody needs to go tell him to switch out with
So Stafford has thrown in 4 games, right? He's thrown 4 touchdowns, 6 picks.
Ooh, that's remnants of his later part of last year when.
That's Winston's stats.
I'm about to drop him in fantasy. He's my super flex, and I'm just getting destroyed. I need to figure out if there's a better player to pick up. That's just bad.
Well, you don't need him this week.
I don't need him because thankfully my team balled out for once. Everybody did well.
They did. Dude, your whole team went on the roid wagon.
They did.
I was figuring you're going to break my score, get over 200.
I thought I was too, but then Stafford decided to lay an egg. Thankfully, Randy's team, a lot of his.
Dude, Randy's team balled out against me last week.
Yeah,
I was pissed about that. That was the third highest scoring team too.
Yeah.
That
played Lamar.
Yeah, everybody is. Yeah, my fantasy team, it's tough. Like I'm 1-2, but it's hard to know what my team does because Joe Burrow, he had a decent first week, and then the last two were bad. This week was decent, right? And then Derrick Henry had a couple sub-10 weeks, right? And then he had a freaking 114-yard touchdown game. Like it's just. And then I'm really risking it with Allaire. Like I love the dude, but man, it's so inconsistent. Like you get to the 2-yard line and freaking McKinnon comes in. You're like, oh no, here he goes. Here comes the vulture. Take away all my touchdowns.
If you can find somebody, my personal opinion, Grant, if you can find somebody that wants to take Allaire off you for a decent price, sell him.
Yeah, I was thinking about and also Kittle, but I'm gonna start. I've got Freiermuth on the bench, the Steelers tight end. I'm just gonna start starting him. I think Kittle. I'm probably gonna get rid of Kittle. Honestly,
it's Pickett season now.
Grant, let me know. I'm interested in Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Mike Evans. We could do a blockbuster deal, buddy.
Let's do it. Let's blow it up. Let's blow up the league.
Let's do it. Yeah, maybe we should enter into some talks after some drinks.
Negotiations.
Or is that a bad idea?
Yeah, liquor me up, and then we'll talk about fantasy. That's great. We'll do that. Oh man, that's funny.
You're gonna get whatever you want, Grant. Whatever, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
The Rams, watching this game. It's Cooper Kupp has freaking 15 receptions because Stafford throws one of these little 5-yard dink and dunks. But man, Stafford just doesn't look great.
That's why I traded. After I drafted Robinson, I was the idiot that drafted Robinson, and after seeing the first 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm done with this, because it's like Robinson put on the invisibility cloak the first game. It was like Stafford's like, I don't see you. Where are you? Oh, I'm just going to see Cooper Kupp. So that's all we're going to do.
I mean, you've seen this game. He's throwing to literally Higbee and Kupp, and then
True.
Who's the number 18? But it's just that's all he throws to. He throws to two different dudes.
Yeah.
And Higbee was great. I could have drafted Higbee but the problem with me with fantasy is I always overpay for a couple positions that I don't want to think about. So last year I had Kyler Murray, right? I just want to have a QB who's going to just crank numbers out. He didn't have a good year. This year, I paid for. I kind of went. I had Derrick Henry, right? So got Derrick Henry, which is fine. It's normal ADP, nothing crazy. Got Kittle. Probably I need to stay away. If it's not Andrews or Kelsey, I just need to stay away from tight ends and just draft some streamer guy and keep him. Because I keep doing this dance with Kittle and other ones that I'm just like, I
decided with, any draft or mock I had done previous to ours, Kelsey had always gone in the second. And so when he dropped to the third, I was like, you know what? I never
God,
do this.
Stafford's so bad. Yeah.
There are a few positions where I'm like, I never draft this guy, but he's also never available here. So I kind of went a little bit off book of what I typically do, and it's been okay.
Your team's been good. You've had some.
I had a bad
Kelsey,
week 2.
Yeah, but Kelsey though, I mean, his floor is 10 points a game, which is insane for a tight end.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, but you've got Herbert.
I got lucky this week too with Goff that he played Seattle, and they don't have a defense too. So,
yeah. So are you going to? You got Dobbins. So you think you're gonna? Are you gonna flex? You got Pierce who went off, right? So are you gonna? You think you're gonna sit Najee, or what are you gonna do? Are you gonna play Dobbins?
Oh man, if I could somehow,
because you have a dilemma because you have a lot of good players. You have Harris and Fournette. You have Pierce and you have Dobbins on the bench. And Dobbins is first game back, dude. Obviously he vultured. He had 2 touchdowns, so he kind of vultured some. But he's gonna get more carries, right? Because he just came back from his injury, so he's gonna get more carries. Yeah. So I think in that run-heavy offense, you might be in business starting him.
I think he has a little bit, and this is kind of this isn't bold to say, but it's a little hot takey. I think he has more value than Harris does playing with Pittsburgh right now. Until Pittsburgh kind of shows more what they can do.
Well, the thing is, you need a good quarterback, regardless of what team for fantasy. You need a good quarterback to take pressure, a la Daniel Jones and freaking Saquon, right? Otherwise, you get the stud running back. They'll load up 8 in the box and then play man defense, and they'll have play like a soft like cover 1 or something, and they're not going to respect you. And so Pittsburgh has to find, if it's Pickett, whatever, if it's Rudolph, like whoever it ends up being, they need to be able to throw the ball some to open that middle up for Harris to get some running room. But right now, they're just stuffing the box on him.
Yeah, if they somehow are able to not have to where Harris is facing a stuffed box, then he'll be better because he's getting the opportunities. He's the one after it came out, because I think it was right after our draft, it came out that Harris was suffering a Liz Frank strain, and everybody freaked out about that. And everybody's like, "Oh, go get Jalen Warren," and I almost pulled the trigger like pre-week 1, after week 1 of getting Jalen Warren. And I stopped myself because my thought process is getting the backup running back who I don't think is as talented as Najee is, because otherwise he would have taken the job. But is getting that guy actually going to be the difference maker on a bad team?
Yep.
And do I want to really just hold up a spot? I was like, I don't think I can do that. So I never saw that allure of, I need to go get this guy. It's like, I'd rather, play the chance. If Harris actually gets hurt, I'll go play. Because at the time, I still had like Ramondre Stevenson, and I don't think I had Dobbins at the time because I traded for Dobbins. But I was like, I'll just take the chance that I'll do it with somebody else and not worry about going and getting Warren, and we'll see what happens. But,
I mean, I think you start Dobbins at least until Edwards is still on the PUP list, right?
Yeah, Edwards is still on the PUP list. I think the only real threat besides Lamar running is actually Justice Hill for Baltimore. So if you want the second running back for Baltimore, it's Justice Hill. I think he's still out there in most leagues.
I think Dobbins is I would sit, especially with Pickett, dude freaking threw 10 completions and 3 picks in 13 attempts, right? So I mean, if I'm playing the Steelers, I'm picking up. I'm doing, what was it, like the oh my gosh, what was the quarterback a couple years ago that everyone started against? It's from Buffalo.
Wow. Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago, where like everyone was like, we have to play the defense because it was so bad. Nathan Peterman, that's what it was. It was so bad. Every week it was like a fumble and 2 picks, and like you got 8 points for your defense just because, it was nothing the defense did of like special teams. It's just a matter of like him destroying other people. But I mean, I think if you've got a defense, I mean, obviously our league doesn't, but if you have defense in your other leagues, I would pick up whoever's playing the Steelers, because Kenny Pickett, if he doesn't start, it's going to be back to Rudolph, and neither one of them are like grade A starters, and it's going to be a disaster. So I would. The Steelers are a hot mess right now.
They are. They're not going to do a whole lot. I think the Ravens are going to take the North for the AFC. I think
Ravens look good, and
we'll see what the Browns do, especially when Watson comes back. But Watson hasn't played in over a year. He's coming up on 2 years not playing. So I know Watson's been good, but what is that time?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be better for the Browns than Jacoby Brissett, but
he will. But the Browns have been built to run. They like to run. They run through Chubb. Yeah. They run through Hunt. Like they run.
Yep.
So
yeah. We'll see. I think that. But yeah, if it was you though, I'm looking at your team. That's what I would do. I'd start Dobbins and bench Harris. Harris ran for 74 yards though, but again, I don't know.
Yeah,
this is painful. I just can't believe this is a quarter. This quarterback won the Super Bowl last year.
I know,
dude. I need him to score right here. I need him to put the pressure back on the 49ers because I need Garoppolo to get me 10 more yards. That's it.
Garoppolo needs 10 more yards. Oh, dude, there's no way. Garoppolo's not going to run. They're going to run the ball out. Garoppolo's not going to pass the ball.
I know. I'm screwed.
How
That
much money are
sucks,
you
man.
losing? How much money are you gonna lose?
I'm only losing $50, but it was like a $350 payout.
Oh man.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not
So-
losing $50 because I made
So
200.
I will say I think out of all the teams, Jeff, I think yours is probably. I think if you figure out the Pittman situation and you got that's your only weak spot is you have one receiver that's kind of like ass, honestly. And other than
Yep.
that, your whole team is money. So if you figured out your receiver thing, you I think you have the best team in the league. I think honestly.
We'll see what happens. I mean, Michael Pittman needs to step up, but again, it's that whole Colts offense needs to step up. So
Yeah.
we'll see. It'll
I
be
think,
interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you
I
got.
think that. Oh man,
Yeah, you
Daniel's team's
definitely
pretty
got a
good too.
decent team.
Daniel's team's
I'm not
pretty good too.
I'm not panicking on my team right now.
No, you're fine.
Washington, the Washington receivers, and I mean that team sucks, but they're always going to be playing from behind,
Yeah,
and they've
you're
played
fine.
some really nasty defenses. I think it's going to get a little bit better for them.
No, you're fine. Also, Gabe Davis will come back. He'll be healthy.
He'll be better.
Yeah.
Like he's getting.
Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook's going to start taking off here fairly soon. I mean, he got 20 plus touches this last weekend. He's getting the opportunity. I think he's going to take off, and then of course Barkley is finally paying me back for like 5 years ago. So
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
Had that happen, we traded for him, but yeah.
I think Daniel's got a pretty good team too. He's doesn't have that elite tier quarterback, but not everybody can have that, especially with the Superflex. And if he figures out his running back situation, I mean, Miles Sanders has been producing pretty well for him. I think his biggest struggle is the split between having Jones and Dillon on the same team. But when you are able to have Kupp and Jefferson, that kind of helps offset that a little bit too. So
right.
Yeah, I think for my team, I need to figure out my quarterback, my second one, because I thought Stafford was gonna be money. I thought him throwing the ball to Kupp was gonna be great, but dude's a turnover machine, and I don't know. I'm not sure if I write out Stafford or if I try to replace him or not, because oh my gosh. God. Oh, as I say that, he just throws like this. That should have been a pick. It should have been a fumble.
Dear Lord,
it's so bad. Cool. Yeah, we should do this. We'll do this. Like I said, if you want to do it Sunday, we could do it. And I know everybody's schedule is different, but we can do it Sunday nights if we want. Like this kind of same thing. We can watch the Sunday game and just comment on it if we want to, and make it more of like an Eli, like a Manning cast sort of thing. Or we could do like we now is we have a couple topics that we like, lump into the game. Or you can talk about the game too. Right. It's fine either way. This is a fumble. This is a fumble, right? This is a fumble.
That's a fumble.
Yeah, he goes backwards, and then the 49ers player punches the ball. It's 100% a fumble, right?
Jeez.
Is it?
It's pathetic. The Rams are ass, man. The Rams are not the Rams a year ago. They're just not anymore.